It's hard to imagine American politics without political parties. From presidential elections to local campaigns, parties shape not only who gets elected, but also how we think about nearly every issue that matters. The constant rivalry between Democrats and Republicans defines much of our political life. Yet what's remarkable is that these parties were never mentioned in the Constitution. The Founding Fathers never intended for them to exist at all. In fact, George Washington warned directly against them. In his farewell address of 1796, he cautioned that political parties could divide the country, lead to factionalism, and cause leaders to serve their parties instead of the people. He feared they would become so entrenched that national interest would always take a back seat to partisan loyalty. Ironically, that warning became a self-fulfilling prophecy almost immediately after he left office. By the 1790s, America was already split between two emerging factions. On one side were the Federalists, led by Alexander Hamilton, who believed in a strong central government, a robust industrial economy, and close ties with Britain. On the other were the Democratic Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, who supported states' rights, limited federal power, and an agrarian vision of America. Jefferson's group believed that the heart of democracy lay in small farmers and local communities, while Hamilton's vision was one of national power, banking, and commerce. These early divisions weren't just about policy. They reflected two fundamentally different visions of what the United States should become. By the early 1800s, the Federalists faded away, weakened by their opposition to the War of 1812 and their reputation for elitism. The Democratic Republicans, however, thrived, but eventually fractured. By 1828, Andrew Jackson had transformed Jefferson's old coalition into the Democratic Party, which championed the common man. Jackson's Democrats opposed concentrated economic power, fought for westward expansion, and believed government should stay small. They presented themselves as defenders of individual liberty and states' rights, but that also meant defending slavery in the South. Opposing Jackson were the Whigs, who believed in a stronger Congress, government-supported infrastructure, and modernization. They argued that the nation needed roads, canals, and schools to grow. They saw government as a tool for progress, while Jackson's Democrats viewed it as a threat to liberty. The Whigs didn't last long, but their ideas about economic development and federal leadership helped shape what would become the Republican Party. In the 1850s, the country was torn apart over slavery, when Congress passed the Kansas-Nebraska Act in 1854, allowing territories to decide for themselves whether to permit slavery. It effectively repealed the Missouri Compromise and set the stage for violent conflict. In response, a new political force emerged, the Republican Party. Formed by anti-slavery activists, former Whigs, and Free Soilers, the party's main goal was stopping the spread of slavery into new territories. Their rise was swift. In just 6 years, the Republicans nominated Abraham Lincoln, won the presidency in 1860. His victory triggered the secession of 11 southern states and the start of the Civil War. Under Lincoln's leadership, the Republican Party became the party of union and emancipation. The Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 and the 13th Amendment in 1865, both Republican-led efforts, abolished slavery entirely. After the war, during Reconstruction, Republicans led efforts to rebuild the South and guarantee civil rights for freed slaves. But by 1877, Northern fatigue and Southern resistance ended Reconstruction, and the party turned toward industrialization and business growth. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party became the party of the South, committed to segregation and opposed to federal intervention. For decades, Democrats dominated the South through what was called the Solid South, while Republicans controlled Northern business and finance. The Progressive era from 1890 to 1920 brought reformers inside both parties. Progressives pushed for women's suffrage, child labor bans, and antitrust laws. Republican President Theodore Roosevelt expanded national parks and challenged monopolies, proving that even a conservative party could champion reform. But when Roosevelt split from the GOP in 1912 to run as a progressive, his third-party candidacy divided Republicans and handed victory to Democrat Woodrow Wilson, one of the earliest and most famous examples of the spoiler effect, where a third-party candidate siphons votes from a major party contender and changes the outcome. The Great Depression transformed both parties. Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal of the 1930s expanded the federal government's role in ways previously unimaginable. Social Security, unemployment insurance, and public works programs redefined liberalism and made the Democratic Party the party of workers, unions, and the economically vulnerable. Republicans, meanwhile, became identified with business interests and fiscal conservatism, emphasizing markets and limited government. The civil rights era of the 1960s again reshaped the political map. When Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, many white Southern Democrats abandoned the party, while African Americans and liberals became its core. The Republican Southern strategy of the 1970s appealed to these disaffected Southern whites, completing the regional flip that defines today's red and blue states. Through these transformations, the two major parties settled into distinct philosophies. Democrats now advocate an activist government that uses its power to ensure equality, provide a safety net, and address issues like climate change and health care. Republicans favor limited government, lower taxes, and a market-driven economy, arguing that personal responsibility and free enterprise generate opportunity. Yet even within each party, divisions persist. Democrats are split between moderates who favor gradual reform and progressives who call for sweeping change on health care, policing, and the environment. Republicans, especially since 2016, are divided between traditional conservatives focused on fiscal restraint and foreign policy, and populist conservatives energized by nationalism, immigration control, and cultural identity. This growing distance between the parties is called polarization. In earlier decades, there was ideological overlap. Conservative Democrats in the South and liberal Republicans in the Northeast. Today, that overlap has virtually vanished. Democrats and Republicans no longer just disagree, they inhabit different social worlds. Democrats living mostly in urban and coastal regions, and Republicans in rural and small-town America. They watch different news, trust different institutions, and often view the other side not merely as wrong, but as dangerous. The roots of modern polarization run deep. Media fragmentation, talk radio, and cable networks encouraged partisan loyalty in the 1990s, while social media algorithms in the 2010s and 2020s have supercharged it. People increasingly live in ideological echo chambers, where opposing viewpoints feel like personal attacks. Politicians exploit these divides because outrage mobilizes voters and raises money. The result is legislative gridlock, rising mistrust, and a public that sees compromise as betrayal rather than collaboration. In such a climate, it's no surprise that many Americans turn to third parties or independent candidates, hoping for an alternative. Yet our electoral system makes that nearly impossible. The United States uses a plurality winner-take-all model. Whoever gets the most votes wins, even if that's less than 50%. Under this system, smaller parties rarely win office because voters fear wasting their vote. Political scientists call this Duverger's law, which predicts that winner-take-all systems naturally produce two dominant parties. Third parties face additional barriers. Ballot access laws vary by state, and they are steep. Major parties automatically qualify, but newcomers must gather tens or even hundreds of thousands of signatures, pay fees, and meet early deadlines. Missing one requirement can mean being excluded entirely. Maintaining ballot status from one election to the next requires earning a certain percentage of the vote. So smaller parties constantly fight just to survive administratively. Then comes the debate problem. Since 1988, the Commission on Presidential Debates has required candidates to poll at least 15% nationally to appear on the debate stage. Because media coverage and polling tend to focus on Democrats and Republicans, reaching 15% is nearly impossible. Without debate exposure, third-party candidates can't reach the audience they need, and without attention, they can't climb in the polls, a vicious cycle that preserves the two-party duopoly. Despite the odds, some third-party and independent candidates have made history. In 1912, Theodore Roosevelt's Progressive Party captured 27% of the popular vote and carried 6 states, one of the strongest third-party showings ever. In 1948, Strom Thurmond's States' Rights Democratic Party, known as the Dixiecrats, carried 4 southern states in opposition to civil rights reforms. In 1968, George Wallace's American Independent Party won 5 states on a segregationist platform. In 1992, Ross Perot's Reform Party earned nearly 19% nationally, reshaping debate around deficits and trade. When third-party candidates draw substantial support, they're often labeled spoilers. Not because they break the law, but because they're blamed for spoiling another party's chance at victory. Ralph Nader's Green Party campaign in 2000 was widely accused of costing Al Gore the presidency by siphoning liberal votes in Florida. Yet calling them spoilers assumes that their votes somehow belong to a major party in the first place, an idea many independents reject. The major third parties each bring distinct philosophies. The Libertarian Party, founded in 1971, champions individual liberty, free markets, and non-interventionist foreign policy, government small enough to fit in your pocket. The Green Party, inspired by global environmental movements, stresses sustainability, social justice, and grassroots democracy. The Constitution Party emphasizes religious conservatism and a strict reading of the Constitution, while smaller movements, from the Forward Party to the Working Families Party, experiment with post-partisan politics. These groups differ sharply from each other and from the major parties. Libertarians want less government in everything. Greens want government actively protecting the planet. Constitutionalists want government limited to its 18th century blueprint. Yet all confront the same systemic challenges: lack of funding, scarce media coverage, ballot access hurdles, and exclusion from debates. Even campaign finance laws favor the big two, since donors are more likely to invest in candidates who can actually win. The two-party system has become self-reinforcing, a loop that reproduces itself every 4 years. There are proposals to change this dynamic. Ranked choice voting, already adopted in Maine and Alaska, allows voters to rank candidates in order of preference. If no one gets a majority, the lowest-ranking candidate is eliminated, and votes are redistributed until someone does. This method reduces the spoiler effect and lets voters express genuine preferences without fear. Other ideas include lowering debate thresholds, standardizing ballot access rules, or introducing proportional representation in Congress. Though such changes would require massive legal and constitutional reforms. Understanding the two main parties today also means recognizing their internal coalitions. The modern Democratic Party draws support from younger voters, racial and ethnic minorities, women, LGBTQ+ citizens, and professionals in urban and coastal regions. Economically, Democrats favor progressive taxation, higher minimum wages, and expanded healthcare programs like the Affordable Care Act. On social issues, they advocate reproductive rights, gun safety laws, and environmental regulations, such as rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement. The modern Republican Party draws strength from rural areas, small business owners, evangelical Christians, and voters skeptical of federal power. Republicans tend to favor lower taxes, energy independence through fossil fuels and domestic drilling, and deregulation to boost business. On social issues, they emphasize traditional family structures, religious freedom, and stricter immigration enforcement. In foreign policy, they generally support strong defense spending and an assertive national stance. These contrasts show not only different policy goals, but different philosophies of governance. Democrats often see government as a means to promote equity and collective problem-solving. Republicans often see it as a potential threat to liberty and economic growth. Democrats prioritize community and cooperation. Republicans highlight self-reliance and personal responsibility. Each vision appeals to deep-rooted American ideals, which is why the debate never ends. It simply evolves with each generation. Polarization magnifies these distinctions. Since the 1990s, congressional voting patterns have become almost perfectly divided along party lines. Bipartisan coalitions that once passed major legislation, like the 1964 Civil Rights Act or the 1983 Social Security reforms, are rare today. Polarization affects how policies are written, how news is reported, and even how neighbors interact. Studies show partisanship now rivals religion or race as a core part of personal identity. The consequences are visible everywhere: political violence rising, misinformation spreading, and civic trust declining. Yet polarization also has an emotional dimension. People derive a sense of belonging from their side, and that feeling can be powerful. It's easier to rally people to fight an opponent than to negotiate with them. Third parties, though small, often serve as release valves for that frustration. They give disillusioned voters somewhere to go when the major parties feel too rigid. Even if they don't win, they influence the conversation. The Green Party pushed climate change onto the national agenda. Ross Perot made debt reduction a mainstream issue. In that way, third parties act as laboratories for political innovation. The ideas they champion sometimes become mainstream a decade later. Still, the structural reality remains. The United States is, and likely will remain, a two-party system. It's built into our electoral DNA. But that doesn't mean it's static. Parties adapt, coalitions shift, and new movements rise from old frustrations. Political parties are living institutions, reflections of the country's divisions, ambitions, and hopes. From Washington's warning to today's hyper-polarized landscape, American parties have been both the engine and the obstacle of democracy. They organize our aspirations but also amplify our conflicts. They mobilize millions yet often leave many feeling unheard. And even as third parties challenge the system, they remind us that democracy is not about perfect agreement. It's about perpetual argument, guided by rules we all consent to. In the end, parties endure because they translate belief into action. They are imperfect, messy, and often maddening. But without them, democracy would have no shape at all. They remain both a mirror and a motor of the American experiment, always turning, always contested, and always reminding us that freedom depends not on unanimity, but on our willingness to keep debating what kind of nation we want to be.